There we go, it's working. I did pick up this as well. I'll put that there, I'm not stealing it. Okay, hi, I'm Steve and I work at Octopus Deploy. And what I want to talk to you about today is some research I've been doing. I love crunching numbers and I have a little team who help me do it in a good way. So shout out to Charlotte, who is my PhD proper researcher. I'm just a guy that does some Python. And I'm going to go through a couple of findings. I'm going to make 3 asks of everyone here who is working on platforms. And they're things that I think will help us be more successful with platforms. Fingers crossed. So, the research we are undertaking at the moment, an even deeper version of this. This was done last year. And the research looked into adoption, features of platforms, what people are measuring success by, whether they are successful. And we found there were mixed results, right? As you'd expect. Some platforms are highly successful, other platforms are falling a bit flat. So, let's have a look first at why people are spending money on platforms. Now, inside of the community, we talk a lot about developer experience as being a good reason to do a platform, and we talk about cognitive load as a good reason to be doing platforms. But when we spoke to people in the real world, they wanted standardization. That was like the top reason. We just want everyone to use the same things and stop fooling around with different things. So we know that standardization and efficiency is something that sponsors really want from platforms, but we did see that some things like reduced complexity was still on the list. Developer experience was also on the list, it just wasn't high enough up to get on this screen. I'd love it if we could make that higher up, that would be cool. So not as much developer experience and cognitive load as we would expect, but hopefully we'll still get some of those. And developer productivity, that's always in there, even though we haven't yet necessarily agreed on what productivity means. So, what about the features of platforms? Now, one of the interesting things about platform engineering is platforms are very different. So, if you're all working on platforms at the moment, I bet if we looked at 2 of your platforms, they'd be solving completely different needs. Some might be more on the infrastructure side, some might be more on like the builds and deployment side, lots of variety. But this is the things that we found were quite common. So lots of CI/CD pipeline stuff is in here. Documentation, monitoring and observability, yes. Test automation, and then slightly lower down, some things like security, artifact management, all quite cool. Now this one-click setup for new projects. So this is the ability for a developer to say, I'm about to do a new API. I'm going to press a button that says, set me up a new API, and it's going to build me my version control, my pipelines, all my cool stuff, project template. This is highly common in very successful platforms. So, not necessarily the first thing to do. Don't go, oh, we want to be successful, we'll do one-click setup first. You probably can't do it until you've got lots of other things in place. But it's a good sign that you're hitting that peak platform zone. So, highly recommend one-click setup as a long-term goal. Now, in terms of number of features, more features tends to be more successful, which kind of makes sense because platforms are kind of a holistic thing. They're supposed to be solving a whole bunch of problems for developers and for throughput. But with that in mind, very successful platforms can have as few as 3 features. So they don't have to be these huge feature-rich things, but they just trend towards more features being more successful. So 2 features definitely isn't enough, but 3 can be. Okay, what about market share? Now here we're talking about the internal market share. So there's 2 ways of looking at this. One is how many people could use the platform. If you've got lots of different tech stacks, you might not be able to hit every developer in your organization in one hit. And then how many of the ones that could use it, do use it. And on the whole, this diagonal line is everyone who could use the platform is using it. And we can see lots of people are. But there's also lots of stuff where adoption is lower. So we would say this is a signal that either your platform is early, haven't spoken to everyone yet, they don't know your platform exists, or it might be that maybe your platform isn't solving a problem they think they have. So that's an interesting one. These are also interesting down here because they built a platform that only 20% of their organization can use. So I wonder if they've picked the right use cases to solve, or if they've maybe picked the cool new thing that no one is using yet. But if that's part of the strategy, that might work. Like if you're like, we want to move on to this new thing, we'll build a platform for it, and then people will be more likely to do it. Might be a valid strategy. I'm not judging. Now I am judging. Adoption strategy. So, we looked at 2 adoption strategies. One is, the platform is optional, and you're going to build it so it's so good, people want to use it. The other strategy is, you just make everyone use it. And what we found is interesting. We have from the back of the room, this may be difficult, but I'll explain it. This graph shows producers, platform engineers, people that make platforms, and consumers, developers that are using the platform. But it also shows us optional versus mandatory. And over here, there is an interesting difference between platform engineers building a mandatory platform, and they think it's awesome, and developers using a mandatory platform, they hate it. And then if we look at the other side, it's reversed. The platform engineers working on an optional platform think it's less successful because they have to do what developers want, which is sometimes irritating, but the developers love it. So it's an interesting switch there. So there's a strong signal that a mandatory platform is causing this big divide between the different views of success. And if you are making your platform mandatory, I'll share an alternative strategy for that in a minute. But one way you might cross this divide is by upping your feedback with the developers to make sure that you're in tune with what they need. That might help to make this gap a bit smaller between those 2 sides. But yeah, we say there's a definite problem here. Okay, let's talk about measurement. If you want your platform to succeed, you need some way of knowing if what you're doing is working. Now, we've seen lots of different reasons to adopt a platform, and that means that you're not going to have a single set of metrics that are going to work across all platform teams. So, we're going to measure things that are specific to our individual decision to invest. But we know that if we measure more things, we're likely to be more successful, because we're checking more dimensions. And that's what we see in this graph. If I measure one thing, okay, I'm a bit successful. And then as I measure more things, I get more and more successful. But there is an interesting outlier on this chart that we need to talk about. When we don't measure anything, we think we're really good. Okay.
You know, as they say, it's a little bit, the code, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, so it might be that this team that doesn't measure anything has saved so much time by not measuring stuff, they've built an amazing platform. It's possible. But I think there's a different explanation for this. Okay. I look great in the dark. Okay. And then success. Are our platforms successful? And that's some good news. Some platforms meet all of the goals that they were set out to achieve. And so if your platform was there to bring standardization, they achieved it, they got standardization. If your platform is for something else, you got something else. Lots of platforms are meeting many goals, and then there's quite a few that are meeting just some, or maybe none. You probably don't want to be in this area if you want your budget to be safe. We found that budgets were not safe if the platform was meeting no goals. So actually, kudos to the leaders. You've noticed, that's good. And we've already spoken a little bit about this, but there is a difference between the builders and the consumers of platforms and how they view the success. So the overall success numbers should be tempered a little bit. We would love more consumers of platforms to think, yes, this is solving problems for me. But we also need to bear in mind that the sponsors of the platform may have different definitions of success. And it takes time. So this is just the number of years the platform has been established and how likely they are to be successful. So once you hit that 3-year time zone, you're much more likely to be successful than not successful. Does that make sense? It takes time to build a platform. But one of the reasons that it starts going up is because if a platform is not successful, it might just be cancelled. And so that might be one of the reasons. There's the two reasons you can get up there. Platform becomes successful, or platform gets thrown away and no longer registers as being unsuccessful. Okay, I want to rush through these so I can get to my 3 asks. So, last one, feedback. How often do we go to the people that use it and say, is it working for you? And on the whole, this is color-coded for different levels of success. Doesn't seem to matter too much whether you do this every day, every week, or every month. As long as you do it, you can actually be reasonably successful. What doesn't work is if you do it less often than monthly. There is no one being successful with feedback frequencies of less often than monthly. And that's because they're not talking to the people using it. And so I think we know that that makes sense. It's kind of logical. But also, maybe we just have to go and talk to them. Okay, so I've got 3 recommendations now. And these are asks because the people building platforms are the people that can do these things. So, number 1, please don't ignore your users of your platform. Especially if your platform is mandatory, you need to get into the ground, go see, find out how they're using the platform, find out why they're not using the platform if they're in that list of people that haven't adopted it. But go and speak to them, find out, learn their pain. You need to be a little bit marketing when you're in a platform team, because you need to kind of highlight pain that people don't know they have, and then explain that the platform is going to make that pain go away. So, go speak to them to do that. Okay. Whatever your reasons are for adopting a platform, try and measure them in some way. Don't be that team with no metrics. Okay, now, you can't always put numbers on these things. It's not always possible to kind of draw a chart. I'm going to probably misquote Deming here. I think he said about 3% of things that are important can be measured. So if you only base things on numbers, you can go off the rails by ignoring other things like if the developers are happy or not, which you might be able to get some sentiment from. So yeah, please assess your progress towards achieving those goals, especially if you want to keep your budget. And my final ask is about this mandatory and optional platform problem. And what I would ask is, if you are thinking of making your platform mandatory, instead of doing that, make your policies mandatory. So instead of saying you have to use the platform, say you have to produce a software bill of materials. If the platform does that for you, you might then want to adopt the platform. And if you say you have to do static analysis and security analysis on your application, make that policy mandatory. And then we change the situation, which at the moment is teams can kind of just not do those things, or if they adopt the platform, suddenly those things are part of the picture, right? That's the kind of way that we are doing it accidentally. So now we say you have to do that either way. We have to be secure. And now the platform, instead of being this thing that you have to use, is something you're going to want to use. Because no one wants to try and work out how to do all of those things that we know we will need. But they'll just buy your platform. They'll be queuing up, I promise. So that's my asks. I know I've raced through the graphs on this. This report, you can get it for free. Just download it and give us feedback. We also have a survey which is just about to close. It's at oct.to/platform-survey. If you're a platform engineer or a sponsor or a consumer of a platform, your input is crucial. And we will get even deeper insights than we got from this smaller sample. So I'm always happy to talk about research, love talking about numbers, love talking about metrics. You can talk to me about those things at any time. You know, join the Cool Kid gang, we talk about those things. And if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to take questions on the research or platform engineering in general.
What kind of platform and what size of platform you use to study?
So the question is around the ones that we actually looked at in the research, what size of platforms. We basically went out to look across, I don't have the firmographic information here, but we looked across all organization sizes. So 10,000 plus all the way down to smaller organizations. Now, obviously with platforms, you tend not to find platforms in organizations that are like 1 to 5 employees. Probably don't have the problems that platforms solve. But certainly we have a good representation of that kind of 500 up size organizations. And many of those, we say platform teams, many of those are platform groups where they have multiple platforms all solving specific parts of the problem. But this was a smaller sample. The one we're surveying at the moment is going to be a much bigger sample, so we're going to be able to get into the roots of it more and start saying, like, if you're a big company, are you more or less likely to be successful with platform engineering? Or if you're a platform team versus a platform group, what's the difference? That's what we're going to kind of get into next.
And that's exactly my next question about the succession. What's the measurement of success? About like how much they are answering people need, how many customers they have, internal or both external. So
Yes.
how we measure that?
That's a great question. So how is each company measuring success? That's the interesting thing about this survey, is that we were looking at success based on each organization's own adoption reasons. So we were, effectively, none of them are measuring it the same way. So if you follow the DORA research, they've got a really great set of metrics for software delivery performance. You can measure 4 things, and it doesn't matter what kind of software you're producing, those 4 metrics are really good indicators of your ability to deliver a reasonable rate of throughput and reasonable reliability, right? So you can kind of go around and share these 4 numbers, look at these, and we'll compare ourselves and everything. With platform teams, it's just not comparable on that level. We recommend that you measure your market share as an indicator. That's something that I think every platform team can do. Onboarding times is something that all platform teams can do. And either like a net promoter score or a CSAT score, customer satisfaction score, those 3 I think every platform team could probably look at. But then you need to add in measures of whatever your reasons were for adoption. So if you're in a company that's like, we don't have really good throughput of software features, you would want to measure that as a metric specific to you, but that might not be relevant to someone who's trying to control cloud cost.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey Steve, great talk, thanks for that. It seems like nobody's said AI for about 8 minutes, so I just wondered, in the bigger, broader bit of research you're doing, are you capturing any changes to sort of platform engineering methodology, things like the rise of spec-driven development and how that's changing things and how we go about building out these platforms? Is that something, an area of the research that you're looking into, and if so, how?
Yeah, so it's impossible for this question not to come up. AI is obviously on everyone's mind. We are currently about to press go on a specific AI report that we've done, which is a meta-analysis of many other pieces of research. We're kind of standing on the shoulders of giants. And we've done some original research to try and understand what the research is telling us. In the deeper platform report, we've also asked a bunch of questions to see where that's at with platform teams. Have they all pivoted to AI? Because that's what the industry press told us they've done. Or what's happening. So we'll have more insights on that. So watch out. It'll look like this with different colours, and you can download them from the same place. Just go and grab all of the research, like.
AI involved in that.
Yeah.
Or you would just have an image of an AI chip with tentacles over everything.
Yeah, there's no getting away from it. You can't do a panel discussion without the question of AI coming up. It's everywhere in our industry right now, and we're all trying to learn how to use it, right? It's like, and it keeps changing. I'm like, oh yeah, I nailed it. I can do this now. And then they're like, what about this Ralph Wiggum loop then? You're like,
How did you take AI?
cool. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, what about this Ralph Wiggum?
I don't know if that's a serious question, but the Ralph Wiggum loop is, in order to try and beat context decay, you ask the AI to create a plan and a task list so that it can do small pieces of work and then update the plan and task list as it goes, so it kind of beats the context delay. Plus it lets you review the plan if you want to before it does it, which is often very insightful. So yeah, cool, thank you very much.